Madam President, I rise today to discuss my disappointment in the recent turn of events involving the Sustainable Growth Rate Formula, or what we call the SGR or the doc fix. Enacted in 1997, the SGR was conceived as a means of trying to balance the budget and restraining health care costs in Medicare. But it was deeply flawed from the start. Its reimbursement cuts to physicians would cripple seniors' ability to get the quality health care they deserve from their doctors. Consequently, since 2002, when the SGR came into effect, Congress has patched it on a regular basis, and there has been bipartisan support for doing so. These, quote, patches, unquote, have frequently been cobbled together at the midnight hour between leadership of both parties and included in larger legislation without the input of the members or even going through the regular legislative process. Now, this perverse annual dark of night ritual has to stop. Seniors and physicians understand that. Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate understand that. And for the better part of a year, Congress, to the surprise of many, worked to fully repeal the SGR and replace it with more reasonable reforms that move Medicare's physician fee-for-service reimbursement system toward a system that rewards doctors for providing quality care based on outcomes. And we have made tremendous progress. Senator Baucus and I worked for months on a bill that sailed through the Finance Committee on a bipartisan basis. The two relevant House committees passed bipartisan legislation, repealing the SGR as well. Then, in a turn of events that is all too rare these days, the chairman and ranking members of the Senate Finance Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, and the House Energy and Commerce Committee worked tirelessly to come up with one unified policy that House and Senate Democrats and Republicans could all support. Believe it or not, we succeeded. And we succeeded by involving all stakeholders, including the influential American Medical Association, in a fair and equitable manner that resulted in near unanimous support across the healthcare community. For the first time since its enactment in 1997, the House and Senate unite behind a policy that gets rid of this flawed Medicare reimbursement system. So, Madam President, if we've moved thus far, what is the problem? Why am I disappointed? Well, I'm going to tell you. Last night, I was informed that the majority leader is bringing straight to the floor of this body the very policy that we successfully negotiated, tacking on what are known as the healthcare extenders that the Finance Committee passed, but which were not included in what the House and Senate agreed upon with the SGR. But, and here's the problem, the Democrats have no plans whatsoever to pay for it. So Senate Democrats want to pass a bill that has roughly a $177 billion price tag without even trying to offset any of the cost. And sadly, these same Democrats don't seem to care that they've quickly turned what was a true bipartisan accomplishment into another partisan political ploy. To me, this is deeply disappointing. Madam President, I'm very sympathetic to those who say that since Congress has never let the SGR go into effect, we should not have to pay for it. But let's be honest, there's no way that right now a bill that would add close to $200 billion to the deficit is ever going to pass the House. And I don't blame the House. This is reality, Madam President. Democrats in the Senate have blasted the House SGR repeal bill that is paid for by repealing Obamacare's individual mandate. The Senate Majority Leader has said that what the House is doing has, quote, no credibility, unquote, and that House Republicans, quote, got to find something else, unquote, to pay for it. But can't the very same thing be said of what the Senate Democrats are doing? That their plan has, quote, no credibility, unquote, and that they have to find a way of paying for this if they're going to do it. I think we all know the answer to that. Madam President, I just don't understand how we've gotten here. I don't understand why there are these unfortunate attempts to poison a bipartisan product with needless partisanship. We all want to repeal the SGR, so let's dispense with the games and get back to work figuring out a real path forward, and that involves an offset. What's even more astonishing is that Senate Democrats are proceeding in this manner on the very week that some of my colleagues are trying to make the Senate work. Senators Burr and Mikulski have put forward a bill that the Senate is set to consider to reform the Child Care Development Block Grant Program. That's an important bill, certainly to me, because I was one of the few who rammed that through way back when. It took a lot of flack in the process, but it has worked amazingly well. Now, since Senators Burr and Mikulski have put forward this bill after a lot of work by Senator Alexander and Senator Schumer to get the Senate working again, to allow amendments and debate, I have to say I commend them. And I think that Senator Burr and Mikulski deserve great applause and commendation, as do Senator Alexander and Senator Schumer. That's what I don't understand, Madam President. Everybody here knows I have a record of working across the aisle, sometimes to the chagrin of members of my own party, and certainly sometimes to the irritation of some of our very far-right people in Utah. Why turn this bipartisan proposal into a partisan exercise when so many senators want to work together to fix the problems the American people face each and every day? Let me be clear, I support what House Republicans have proposed. It is a reasonable approach to paying for a full repeal of the doc fix. Almost every week, the White House delays or repeals another part of Obamacare. So it's time for the American people to get a reprieve as well. It's the right thing to do. But I'm interested in a result. I want to fix the SGR system once and for all. And I hope that after this pointless exercise designed for political cover, that we can come together to do what's right. Let's go back to our winning formula and get our bipartisan, bicameral negotiations underway to find a responsible path forward. Look, I like both of our leaders. They're strong people. They have differing philosophies. There's much to commend both of them. And I suppose some would say much to criticize in each case. But there's no reason for this type of ramming something through that has no chance of passing the House. And frankly, doesn't have much chance of having any Republican support at this point. Because we believe that this kind of a program has to be offset to literally be valid and to be viable. I think everybody here knows that. And we've got to find an offset to do it. And if we can't find an offset, we have to keep the SGR alive till we do. But to make it into a partisan game at this point, after all the bipartisan work that's been done, is really a tragedy. I hope the AMA realizes this. I remember years ago when I told them, lay back, we're going to get this done for you. And they didn't. They just went right to the partisans in this body and undermined everything we were trying to do at the time, which would have gone a long way towards solving some of these problems. And we were on the verge of getting them solved. I hope that doesn't happen this time, because a lot of us have worked our guts out to get this to this point on both sides of the floor. And it would be an absolute tragedy if we can't get the cooperation to get this through. If the Democrats, if they don't like the offset that the House has come up with, although it seems to make sense to me, then they control this body. Let's come up with an offset that both sides can agree to. But we've got to have an offset. And we got to do this the right way, or we're right back at base one after all the work that's been put in a bipartisan way to get this done. Madam President, I yield the floor.